There are a lot of noises outside right now. Obviously, when I start filming, something's going on. But I'm just gonna try and ignore that because I have to film this video because I have to go to work. Hi everyone, my name is Serena. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna talk about 3 books that I read during spooky season. I know it's almost Christmas. I know it's the holiday season and I hope everyone's having a great time. But I really want to talk about these books because I haven't read a lot in general this year. So let's just get right into it. I have my notes ready. And yeah, I read 3 horror books because I really want to read more horror. And I thought this season was the perfect time to start. I've read a little bit more of thrillers. So yeah, I concentrated more on horror this season and I read 3 of them. And let's start with the first one that I read. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This is my first Grady Hendrix book, and I do own the Guide to Slaying Vampires. That's a long title. I'm sorry, I don't remember it, but I own that book too, and I want to read that one. And I know it's an adaptation. It recently came out on Amazon Prime, and I watched that first. I know. I don't usually do that, but my annual subscription was about to end, so I decided to just watch it. And it's actually very faithful to the book. There is just one difference that I've noticed, one big difference that I noticed that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But let's just talk about the book right now. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a good read. This book is about 2 friends, Abby and Gretchen, who meet, I think, in elementary school, and then they're just best friends for all the years after that. They're currently in high school and they go to a party one night. Some things happen and they get separated, and then one of the friends, Gretchen, comes back not quite the same. And by the title, this is not a spoiler, we, can imagine that she is probably possessed. So it's not a complicated synopsis. It's really just about these 2 friends. One of them gets possessed and then the other one is trying to help her get an exorcism. So it's really that simple. But there are a lot of other themes in this book that are important. There are talks about religion. Gretchen's parents are very religious, so they're very strict. Also, there's talks about sexual assault, and that is a touchy subject in religions. Also, it talks about how women are not believed as much as men, because Abby really is trying to help her friend and a lot of people just don't believe her. Other things that I really enjoyed about this book are obviously the friendship and the vibes, the atmosphere, because it's set during the 80s. There are a lot of pop cultural references. Abby really loves the movie E.T. They go skating. I really want to go skating, roller skating. So yeah, I really loved reading a book set in that decade. It wasn't scary. Speaking of horror, it wasn't scary, at least for me it wasn't, but it was gross. There were some really gross scenes. There was the scene with tapeworms. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but a lot of vomit and stuff like that. So it was more gross than scary. The ending was kind of bittersweet because, they grow up and life happens. But yeah, that's the book. And for what concerns the adaptation, the biggest difference that I've noticed is one of the side characters' story, Glee. In the movie, they add in a little bit of LGBT representation. And that's all I have to say about this book. I enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about this if you read it. The next book that I read is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is obviously my first book from him as well, by him. And I enjoyed it a little bit more. I gave it 4 stars. It is set in this post-apocalyptic kind of setting, and there are these beings in the outside world that people cannot look at, otherwise they lose their minds. They start being very violent and end up killing themselves, killing other people. So yeah, they don't go outside, they stay inside, and if they do go outside, they have to be blindfolded. So we don't really actually find out what happened or what these creatures are, and I know that a lot of people don't like that, and I get it, but it also makes sense because if the main characters don't actually see these beings, the reader doesn't know what they are. So it makes sense, but it is frustrating. I get it. Yeah, it's about this woman, Mallory, who all of a sudden is alone. So she goes to a safe house and meets other people. She is pregnant. We have flashbacks to her time in the safe house. And then there are the present day scenes in which she is with these kids and she's trying to cross a river on a boat, or like go down a river with a boat and to another safe house. So it's about this journey on the river with all of them blindfolded. It is a little bit scarier than My Best Friend's Exorcism. And the part that unsettled me the most was one of the last flashbacks. There was one of the people in the safe house who does something during the birth of the babies that really unsettled me. If you know, you know. Other than that, I was okay. It's a bit creepier and shocking than My Best Friend's Exorcism. I find it interesting that this is set in more of a future setting and this is set in the 80s in the past. That was interesting to notice. I know that there is a movie for this. I'm gonna watch it. It's with Sandra Bullock. I want to see what the differences are. I'm not going to talk about them in this video because I have not watched the movie. Is it good? Is it a good movie? Oh, and also there are a lot of since they don't see these beings, there are a lot of auditory and physical descriptions, which I found very interesting. Last book that I want to talk about that I read during spooky season is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is a classic. I believe it was written in 1959, my notes say. I was scared I wasn't gonna like this one because it's more of a classic, and I read The Turn of the Screw a year ago or 2 years ago, and I did not like that at all. It was very short as well, but the language with classics are a hit or miss for me because of the language, and I did not like The Turn of the Screw, but that was set more in the 1800s, so I guess the language was much more different than 1959, obviously, because the language changes so much in very few years. But I actually liked the writing of this one. It was a good book. I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars as well. And this book is more about a haunted house. A creepy story about a haunted house is, I think it's the typical horror story, and this book inspired so many adaptations. I know that this is a show as well that I want to watch it's mostly inspired by The Haunting of Hill House than actually a faithful adaptation. I've heard that it's nothing like the book, and I want to watch that. I haven't watched it yet, so let me know how it is. A lot of people love it. This is a story about 4 people. We have Dr. Montague, who wants to go to this house, Hill House, because he heard that there are occult beings and ghosts, and he wants to go and research that and stay in this house for a week or something. And he sends out letters to a couple of people, and 2 women respond. Theodora, who is an outgoing woman who becomes his assistant, and then there's Eleanor, who is a more reserved, introverted girl who is interested in the occult. So she goes to this house and they stay there for a while. There's also this future heir of Hill House, Luke, who's also there. Yeah, it's about them living in this house and figuring out some weird stuff. And the narrator is actually Eleanor, so we see things from her perspective, and she does end up being a very unreliable narrator. It wasn't that scary to me. A lot is left to the imagination. The doctor's wife was funny. Those scenes were funny. It was more of a comic relief. I don't have much to say about this book. It was good. It was a haunted house story, you know, and I want to watch the show. I don't have much to say about this book. It was good, 3.5 stars. I'm sure a lot of people heard about this book already. I don't have to talk about it much. But yeah, those are the books that I read this spooky season. Have you read any of these? Let me know. And what is your favorite horror? If you read horror, let me know, because I need to find like a favorite horror, and I haven't yet. So yeah, let me know down below, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.